Hello, friends. Today, I'll reveal how love turns into a silent cage that erodes your will. This is the story of Maya and her partner Camille, a relationship that started with midnight calls and ended in endless apologies. Behind the empathy lies a terrifying loss of self, where saying no feels like betrayal. Watch closely. The therapy room hummed with the quiet weight of shared silences, a circle of mismatched chairs under soft, diffused light that pooled like forgotten sunlight. Maya sat at the edge, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, the half-open window behind her, letting in a tentative breeze that stirred the curtains but stopped short of filling the space. It mirrored her, cracked open, inviting air, yet braced against the rush. Dr. Layla nodded gently from across the circle, her voice a steady anchor. Maya, whenever you're ready, this is a space for your truth. Maya's throat tightened, anxiety clawing up like vines she couldn't prune. What if they saw her as weak? The victim who stayed too long, who let Camille's words seep in like poison. Demands disguised as love, evenings eroded by endless apologies she never meant to give. It started small. She began, voice barely above a whisper, eyes fixed on the floor. Camille would call at midnight, needing me to fix her chaos. I'd drop everything, even when my own day had shattered me. Saying no felt like I'd be the one breaking us. Her words tumbled out, raw fragments. The late-night drives to soothe Camille's storms, the guilt that bloomed when Maya dared a quiet evening alone. Each confession peeled back a layer, exposing the ache of boundaries she hadn't known how to claim. Fear gripped her, judgment in their eyes, the echo of Camille's voice whispering she was selfish for even speaking. Jordan leaned forward, his face etched with recognition, not pity. I get that pull, he said softly. My ex had me canceling plans for her crises. Thought it was loyalty, but it was just losing pieces of me. The group murmured assent, a ripple of nods and shared glances. Dr. Layla interjected with calm precision. What you're describing, Maya, is the neuroscience of it. Our brains wire for connection, but without boundaries, that empathy becomes a floodgate. It's not weakness, it's a signal to protect your energy. Maya glanced at the window, the breeze now brushing her cheek, cooler, clarifying. The knot in her chest eased, anxiety fracturing into something sharper. Realization. These people weren't judging. They were mirrors, reflecting her own hidden strength. She hadn't lost herself in the telling. Her voice held, her story landed without erasure. The past's shadow, Camille's lingering demands, felt distant, diluted by the circle's quiet solidarity. As the session flowed, voices layered in, stories of reclaimed time, invisible lines drawn in sand. Maya's fear softened into a quiet resolve. Could she be heard, truly seen, without surrendering her core? The question hung in the air, unanswered yet alive, as the window sighed wider in the gathering dusk. As the session continued into the next gathering, the therapy room hummed with quiet anticipation, soft afternoon light filtering through a half-open window. A gentle breeze stirred the curtains, carrying the faint scent of rain-soaked earth from the park outside. Maya sat in the circle of folding chairs, her fingers twisting the edge of her notebook, eyes fixed on Dr. Layla Jensen. The therapist's voice was steady, like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. Boundaries aren't walls we build to keep people out, Dr. Layla said, her gaze sweeping the group before settling on Maya. They're more like protective energy, a vital force that regulates what enters and exits our inner world. Think of your emotions as a neural network, wired for survival. When we ignore that energy, our amygdala, the brain's alarm center, fires up, flooding us with stress hormones. But healthy boundaries? They engage the prefrontal cortex, our decision maker, helping us respond instead of react. Maya's mind raced, a whirlwind of doubt. Energy? The word felt abstract, like something from a self-help book she'd skimmed but never believed. Her chest tightened with anxiety, the old fear coiling. If she claimed this energy, would Camille's voice echo back, accusing her of selfishness? She glanced at Jordan across the circle. He nodded subtly, his own scars visible in the way he leaned forward, hungry for proof. Dr. Leela leaned in, her tone inviting rather than demanding. Maya, you've shared glimpses of how your past blurred those lines. Imagine your emotional space as a garden. Without boundaries, weeds, demands, manipulations choke the soil. But this energy, it's the sunlight and rain you control. Neuroscience shows us. Consistent boundaries rewire pathways, reducing chronic anxiety by up to 40% in just weeks. It's not rejection, it's reclamation. The group murmured agreement, a ripple of heads nodding. Jordan spoke first, his voice tentative. Like when I told my boss I couldn't work weekends anymore. Felt like I was losing everything, but my head cleared. No more burnout fog. Maya's breath caught. The half-open window caught her eye again, the gap just wide enough for fresh air to slip in without the storm rushing through. What if this energy isn't a barrier, but a filter? Her anxiety ebbed, a tentative hope blooming in its place. She could almost feel it, her neural circuits shifting, the weight of endless apologies lifting. The circle's warmth enveloped her, Dr. Layla's words anchoring the trust they'd begun to build. Camille's manipulative whispers seemed distant now, drowned by this shared clarity. Yet, as the session paused, Maya wondered, could she embrace this without the terror of doors slamming shut forever? Later that week, away from the group, Maya's apartment hummed with the quiet of late afternoon, sunlight slanting through the half-open window like a hesitant invitation. She sat cross-legged on the floor, journal open in her lap, the pages a patchwork of old apologies fading against fresh, bold affirmations. Her fingers traced the spine, steadying her breath after the morning's group session. Dr. Layla's words lingered, boundaries as protective energy, not barriers. Energy she could feel in her chest, warm and expanding. The phone buzzed on the coffee table, shattering the peace. Camille's name flashed on the screen, unbidden, like a ghost slipping through cracks. Maya's heart lurched, a familiar vice clamping her ribs. Fear bloomed hot and sharp, the old reflex kicking in. Pulse racing, palms damp, the urge to answer, to soothe, to erase the discomfort before it could fester. She flinched, body curling inward, as if the vibration alone could pull her back into that suffocating orbit. She didn't pick up, not yet. The ringtone looped, insistent, a demand wrapped in familiarity. Memories flooded. Camille's voice, velvet over steel, always needing more. More time, more yielding, more of Maya's edges sanded smooth. The fear whispered of abandonment, of being the villain for withholding. But Maya paused, eyes squeezing shut. She felt it now, the knot in her gut, the shallow breaths, the body's alarm, not a command. Slowly, deliberately, she placed a hand over her abdomen, grounding into the rise and fall. In her mind's eye, the boundary rope from therapy uncoiled. A simple cord, thick and unyielding, laid out in the circle to mark safe distance. Layla had guided them to hold it, to feel its weight, imagining it stretched between self and other. Maya visualized it now, looping from her core outward, not to push Camille away, but to hold space for herself. The phone went to voicemail. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It thrummed with possibility, the fear ebbing into something cooler, a conscious step back. She wasn't surrendering. She was choosing. Jordan's face flickered in her thoughts. His story from group, how a single no at work had cracked open his world. And Layla's steady gaze, the circle's quiet nods, an invisible tether stronger than any past pull. Camille's message would wait. Maya exhaled, the rope tightening just enough, protective, alive. Could she let this go without the ache of self-betrayal? The question hung unanswered as she turned back to her journal, pen poised for what came next. Returning to the circle soon after, the circle of folding chairs in the recovery center's softly lit room felt like a fragile web, each person a thread holding the others in place. Dr. Layla sat cross-legged at the center, her notebook balanced on her knee, eyes scanning the group with quiet encouragement. Maya fidgeted with the edge of her journal, its pages a patchwork of faded apologies from months past clashing against fresh, bolder script. Lines she'd scratched in last week, tentative claims on her own time. Jordan cleared his throat, his voice steady but laced with the echo of old nerves. "It was last spring?" he began, leaning forward, hands clasped like he was gripping an invisible rope. "My boss dumped extra shifts on me, week after week, because I was the reliable one. I kept saying yes, thinking it'd earn me respect. But it was killing me. Nights blurred into days, and I was one breakdown away from quitting. Then during a meeting, he asked for overtime again. I paused, felt that pull, the old habit screaming to nod along. But I said, no, I can't take that on right now. Firm. No explanations, no softening it. The room held its breath. A woman across from Maya nodded faintly, her fingers twisting a tissue. Jordan continued, his gaze drifting to the half-open window where afternoon light filtered in, carrying the distant hum of the park outside. He pushed back. But you're the team player. And I felt the room tense, like I'd snapped a thread. But I held it. This is my limit, I told him. And you know what? He backed off, hired temp help instead. Saved my job, really. Because without that no, I'd have burned out and walked anyway. Boundaries aren't walls, they're anchors. They keep the connections real, not frayed from resentment. Maya's pen hovered over her journal. Her mind raced. Could she do that? Stand in the echo of Camille's voice on the phone, that insistent pull from the past, and just hold? The old doubt coiled tight in her chest. What if her no shattered everything, left her alone in the quiet? She glanced at the contrasting pages. Yesterday's entry, a looping "I'm sorry for turning down a coffee invite." Today's, a single line. My evening is mine. Uncertainty gnawed, a shadow across her thoughts. But Jordan's words landed like a spark, not breaking, preserving. Refusal as care, for herself, for the bonds that mattered. She jotted a note, the ink blooming fresh against the old. The group murmured agreement, eyes turning to her with unspoken invitation. Dr. Layla smiled faintly. What does that stir for you, Maya? In the pause, the question lingered, unspoken but electric. Could a simple refusal honor respect without tearing the fabric apart? Building on that momentum in the following session, the therapy room hummed with the soft rustle of folding chairs and the faint scent of chamomile tea. Sunlight filtered through half-open windows, casting elongated shadows across the circle of faces. Vulnerable, expectant, Dr. Layla Jensen sat at the center, her voice a steady anchor, like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. Today, we tune into the body, she said, her eyes warm but precise. Boundaries aren't just words, they're energy, Felt in the gut, the tightening shoulders, the quickened breath. Let's practice noticing before we react. Maya Carson shifted in her seat, her fingers twisting the edge of her journal. The room felt both safe and suffocating. Memories of Camille's insistent calls bubbling up like uninvited static. Her chest tightened, a vague blur of old demands, the kind that had blurred her edges for years. She couldn't pinpoint it yet, just a hazy pull, as if her past were a tide dragging her under without warning. Layla held up a coiled length of soft rope, its fibers rough yet yielding. "This is our boundary rope," she explained, letting it drape across the floor between her and the group. "Imagine it marks your space. Now, close your eyes. Breathe into your center. Scan for signals. What's whispering too close right now?" She paused, the silence deliberate, heavy with invitation. The group followed. Jordan, across from Maya, exhaled slowly, his brow furrowed. Others nodded faintly, bodies settling. Maya's mind wandered first to the voicemail she'd ignored last night, Camille's voice slicing through. "You owe me this talk." The intrusion hit not as a shout, but a subtle creep, warming her cheeks, knotting her stomach. Blurriness reigned, emotions smearing like wet ink, urging her to dissolve, to answer, to smooth it over. But Layla's voice pulled her back. "Notice the sensation. Don't judge, just observe." Maya focused on her breath, the air cool against her nostrils. Her shoulders, once hunched in reflex, began to square. The knot in her gut sharpened into awareness. A clear ping, like a string plucked. "Who's feeling it?" Layla asked gently. Jordan spoke first, voice low. "Tight jaw, like when my boss pushes overtime. Feels like he's stepping over this line in my head." Nods rippled around the circle. Maya hesitated, then murmured, "A flush in my face. From someone from before. It's like they're already in the room, crowding." The words hung, met with quiet affirmations. "Yeah, I get that." From a woman beside her, Jordan's encouraging glance. The circle held her, a collective exhale diluting Camille's echo, making it smaller, less invasive. Layla uncoiled the rope slightly, stretching it toward the group without crossing. "See? We can sense the approach. The energy shifts before the breach. Hold that observation. It's your power." Maya's pulse steadied, the blur receding into crisp edges. She could feel the rope's metaphor now, not as a barrier, but a guide taut against the pull of the past. In that moment, the question lingered unspoken. Could she catch the intrusion next time, before it pulled her under? The practice accelerated something inside. A quiet engine revving toward control. Carrying that awareness into her daily life, Maya sat across from her friend Elena in the cozy corner of the community park cafe, the afternoon sun filtering through half-open windows like hesitant invitations. Their usual meetups stretched long, hours of shared stories, laughter laced with unspoken expectations. But today, Maya's journal burned in her bag, its pages a quiet testament to her growing resolve. New entries of no scribbled boldly over faded apologies. "I need to wrap this up soon," Maya said, her voice steady but soft, like a thread pulled taut. "I've got an evening thing, therapy homework actually. Maybe next time we can keep it to an hour?" Elena's fork paused mid-air, hovering over her salad. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of hurt sharpening into something sharper. "An hour? Maya, we've always done this. You know I look forward to these talks. They're my unwind. What's this about? Are you pulling away?" The words landed like a familiar weight on Maya's chest. Guilt bloomed first, warm and insidious, whispering that she was failing as a friend, that true care meant endless availability. Her breath caught, shallow as tension coiled tighter. Muscles in her shoulders drawing in, a silent alarm from the mindfulness exercises with Dr. Layla. Not a command, she reminded herself, just a signal. The boundary rope in her mind tightened, not to push Elena out, but to hold space for her own air. "I'm not pulling away," Maya replied, meeting Elena's gaze. "I value this, us. But I need to honor my limits right now. It helps me show up better." "How about Thursday, same time, but capped?" Elena sighed, crossing her arms. The rhythm of their easy flow disrupted like a skipped heartbeat. "It feels like you're changing the rules. I get you're in recovery mode, but don't make me the bad guy for wanting our old vibe." The guilt twisted deeper, urging Maya to cave, to extend the hour with a smile. But she held her breath instead, counting the inhales as Dr. Layla had taught, observing the pull without yielding. Doubt flickered. Was this care, or just another wall? She glanced at her bag, the journal's edge peeking out, a reminder of choices etched in ink. "Thursday it is," Maya said gently, standing as the clock ticked past her internal limit. "Respect that for me?" Elena nodded reluctantly, the air between them charged but unbroken. As Maya walked away, the park's gentle breeze brushed her skin, leaving the question hanging. Could she nurture this bond without dimming her own light? Reflecting on that encounter at home, the camera lingers on Maya's apartment. Late afternoon light filtering through the half-open window. A faint breeze stirring the curtains, like an invitation to breathe deeper. She sits cross-legged on the floor, journal splayed open on her lap. Its pages a patchwork of contrasts. Faded ink from old apologies bleeding into fresh, bold lines of affirmations. Her fingers trace the spine, hesitant at first, as if doubting the weight of what's inside. Cut to a close-up. Maya's hand grips the pen, pausing midair. "I am worthy of my own time," she whispers, voice cracking with the echo of skepticism. The words feel hollow, like echoes in an empty room. Boundaries as mere phrases, not shields. Doubt coils in her chest, a tight knot questioning if this ritual is just another illusion, words without roots. She glances at the window, half shut against the world, mirroring her guarded heart. Why record this? What if it all unravels when tested? She exhales, flips to a blank page, and begins scripting aloud. I choose to honor my energy. The rhythm builds, her tone shifting from murmur to measured cadence. Cut to her reading back an entry from last week, the one about letting Camille's call ring unanswered. That pause, it wasn't rejection, it was space. A small smile flickers as she underlines it. The pen scratch a quiet victory. Memories of the group surface unbidden. Jordan's nod of solidarity. Dr. Layla's calm voice framing boundaries as living energy, not walls. Their support hums in the background, a subtle undercurrent bolstering her solo rehearsal. Now the montage quickens. Maya stands, pacing the room, rehearsing a no to an imagined Elena. Firm, yet laced with care. This time works for me. Let's reschedule. Her reflection in the window catches her eye, posture straightening as the internal tremor eases. She returns to the journal, jotting a new win. Leaving the coffee meet on her terms, no guilt trailing like a shadow. The pages fill, old hesitations overshadowed by these anchors. Doubt thins, giving way to a budding certainty. These words aren't empty. They're scaffolding, repeated until they hold. She closes the journal gently, pressing it to her chest, feeling the subtle shift. Voices inside softening from accusation to affirmation. The breeze pushes the window wider, fresh air mingling with resolve. Can these captured moments truly become the foundation she leans on? The question lingers, unanswered, as the light warms her face. Deepening her practice in the next therapy gathering, the therapy room hummed with quiet anticipation, soft afternoon light filtering through the half-open window like a tentative invitation. Dr. Layla sat cross-legged in the circle, her voice steady as a lighthouse. Today, we rewrite the scripts we've carried too long. Maya, if you're ready, speak your old belief aloud, like an actor stepping onto the stage. Then, give it a new line. Maya's fingers tightened around her journal, its pages a mosaic of old apologies and fresh resolve. Guilt coiled in her chest, heavy as childhood shadows. Nights spent small and silent to keep peace in a house of endless giving. She cleared her throat, eyes fixed on the boundary rope coiled on the floor like a dormant snake. To love means to surrender. If I don't give everything, I'm not enough. Love is sacrifice, or it's nothing. The words hung, raw and accusing, stirring murmurs from Jordan and the others. Maya's throat burned, the old guilt surged, whispering she was selfish for even voicing it. But Dr. Layla nodded gently. Now, rewrite it. What does your wiser self say back? Maya hesitated, thoughts tumbling like leaves in wind. The belief wasn't a wall, it was a chain. What if love was an erasure? She leaned forward, voice gaining edges. No. Love is sharing from a full cup, not emptying it dry. I can hold my space and still reach out. Boundaries aren't rejection. They're the bridge that keeps us both standing. Relief flickered, tentative at first, loosening the knot in her gut. She flipped open the journal, pen in hand, the contrasting pages staring back. Faded pleas beside bold new ink. I deserve rest, she wrote, the words flowing like exhaled breath. Caring for myself is how I care for you. The group's eyes on her felt like anchors, not judgments. Jordan's nod echoed silent approval, weaving trust into the air. As she closed the journal, a question lingered, unspoken yet electric. What if self-care was love's truest thread? The room breathed easier, Maya's shoulders lighter, the half-open window now letting in a fuller breeze. As that insight settled, another call from the past tested her resolve in Maya's apartment, hummed with the quiet rhythm of evening. Tea steaming on the windowsill, the half-open pane letting in a whisper of city air. Her journal lay open, pages a mosaic of old apologies inked over with fresh affirmations. The phone buzzed on the coffee table, Camille's name flashing like an old scar. Maya hesitated, thumb hovering, a familiar guilt twisting in her chest like a vine. She needs me. The thought slithered in, unbidden. This time, it'll be different. She breathed deep, eyes closing. In her mind's eye, the therapy room materialized. Dr. Layla's voice, steady as a heartbeat. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the rope that holds your space sacred. Maya pictured it now, the coiled length of hemp from group sessions, warm against her palm, marking the line where another's pull ended and her ground began. She gripped the imaginary rope tighter, feeling its texture ground her, pulling back the fear that whispered she'd be alone if she let go. The phone buzzed again, insistent. Maya answered, voice even, no tremor. Camille. Maya, I need to see you. Tonight. Things are falling apart here, and you're the only one who gets it. Please. The words landed like they always had. Heavy, demanding, laced with that subtle hook of obligation. Guilt flared hot, a reflex urging her to fold, to drive across town and mend what wasn't hers to fix. But Maya held the rope, felt its taut strength. This was her choice now, not surrender. No, she said, the words simple, unadorned. No sorry, no softening. My time is mine tonight. I have plans with myself. Silence stretched, Camille's breath sharp on the line. You're really doing this? After everything? Maya's pulse steadied, the guilt ebbing like tide pulling out, revealing resolve beneath, solid, unyielding. Yes, I am. Take care. She hung up, phone face down, and leaned into the couch. The window's breeze stirred, fresh air claiming the room. No rush to anywhere but here. In the next group circle days later, Maya shared it, voice clear, the boundary rope metaphor spilling out like shared light. Jordan nodded, eyes bright. Dr. Layla's smile affirmed the shift. The past's pressure faded in their listening, her new voice echoing. Boundaries as care, a quiet revolution. But as the session closed, the air held a subtle question. Can you say no without apologies and still feel whole? Culminating her journey in the final session, the therapy room hummed with quiet anticipation. Sunlight filtering through the half-open window like a tentative invitation. Maya sat at the circle's edge, her journal clutched in her lap, its pages a testament to battles won in ink. Dr. Layla nodded from across the room, her eyes a steady anchor. Your turn, Maya, she said softly. The group, Jordan with his fidgeting hands, Elena mirroring Maya's old hesitance, turned toward her, expectant. Maya's pulse quickened, a flicker of uncertainty tightening her chest. Who was she to lead? The old voice whispered, give more, blend in, let them lean. Say, this far, no further, without apology. Hands reached, the rope weaving through the circle like a relay of reclaimed power. Laughter bubbled when someone tugged too hard, then softened into focus as they corrected. Bodies tuning to the cord's subtle resistance. Maya's uncertainty ebbed, replaced by a resolute warmth. She wasn't surrendering her space, but sharing its strength. Jordan caught her eye, grinning. You're nailing this, Maya. Feels real. As the exercise circled back, Maya tightened her grip on the rope's end, not to yank, but to anchor. The group saw it. Her voice carried care, yet stayed her own. No overgiving, no fade into duty. The air thickened with possibility, the question lingering unspoken. How to inspire without erasing the line that made her whole? She released the rope into the center, the circle complete. Hold your ropes, she said, determination solid in her stance. They strengthen us all.